most of what goes on inside your head today didn't start inside your head. That's not an opinion, just notice it for a moment. Before breakfast, you've already reacted to strangers. Before your body is fully awake, you've taken positions, not because something urgent happened in your life, but because something appeared on a screen. It feels personal. It feels like your thoughts, your reactions, your emotions. And yet they arrive fully formed, already charged. Here's the uncomfortable part. If every thought and feeling you have right now were true in any deep sense, the world would be unlivable, not violent, just unbearably crowded. This isn't about calming your mind or fixing what you think. It's about seeing how much of your day is spent inside conversations that never actually touched your life. This isn't a video to watch while multitasking. Nothing here works at double speed. If you stay, you may not agree with everything, but you might notice something quietly unsettling. That much of what you've been reacting to was never really about you at all. Have you noticed how rarely a thought arrives alone now? You're not just thinking, you're responding to something someone said, to something someone shared, to something that already has comments under it. Think about a regular morning, coffee in hand, phone unlocked, nothing dramatic happens, no crisis, no emergency. And yet, your inner weather starts shifting, a headline tightens something, a post irritates you, a clip makes you nod in agreement with someone you've never met. It all feels internal, private, like this is just my mind doing its thing. But pause for a second. Where did that thought actually come from? Not the words, the charge behind it. The certainty, the annoyance, the sudden sense that something matters. We're told we live on an information highway. But notice what actually moves fastest. It's not facts, it's reactions. Approval, outrage, belonging, exclusion. Opinions don't travel alone, they carry emotion with them, and emotion doesn't ask for permission. So a thought shows up in you, it feels personal, it feels earned, but it was shaped in public. That doesn't make it wrong, it just makes it shared. And when millions of people are sharing, reacting, amplifying, something subtle happens. The line between what I'm experiencing and what I'm responding to starts to blur. You don't lose your mind, you don't become irrational, you just stop noticing where your inner life is being steered from, not by bad intentions, not by manipulation alone, but by the sheer volume of voices talking at once. If that's the environment we're breathing in every day, the real question isn't, are my thoughts good or bad? It's quieter than that. It's, which of these reactions actually belong to the moment I'm living in right now? So what do most people do when they hear something like this? They translate it into something practical. Manage your thoughts. Don't take emotions so seriously. Filter out the negative ones. That sounds reasonable. At work, it even sounds responsible. If you're irritated before a meeting, you tell yourself to calm down. If a comment online annoys you, you scroll past it. If you feel anxious, you label it and move on. Society rewards that. You're seen as mature, composed, in control. There's also comfort in it. If thoughts and emotions are the problem, then improvement feels possible. You just need better habits, better tools, a cleaner mindset. And honestly, this works to a point. You get better at functioning, you react less publicly, you keep things together. But notice something small. Even when you're not believing a thought, you're still listening closely, you're still negotiating with it, arguing, reframing, pushing it aside. It stays at the center of attention. So the mind becomes busy in a quieter way, less dramatic, more polite. And that's where it gets interesting. Because in a world that constantly feeds you things to react to, learning how to manage reactions can look a lot like freedom. Until you notice how much energy is still being spent inside the reaction itself. That's not a failure, it's just something most of us never pause long enough to see. Have you ever noticed how a thought can lose its grip, but still keep your attention? You tell yourself, I don't really believe this. I know I'm overreacting. I shouldn't take this so personally. And for a moment it feels lighter. But look closely, where is your attention during all of this? It's still right there, hovering, monitoring, waiting for the next version of the same thought to show up. It's like sitting in a room with someone talking nonstop. You don't argue anymore. You don't agree either. You just stay. That feels mature, balanced, even wise. But something subtle happens when you stay long enough. The room becomes your world. In daily life, this shows up quietly. You're driving, replaying a conversation you've already moved past. You're eating, scrolling through opinions you don't fully agree with. You're with someone you care about. But part of you is still inside a reaction you think you've resolved. Nothing is wrong, nothing is dramatic. It's just occupied. So the question shifts not, is this thought true? Not even, should I believe it? But something gentler and more unsettling. What if the real weight isn't belief, but proximity? What if staying close to every reaction, even with good intentions, is already a kind of involvement we rarely question? Just notice that you don't have to do anything with it yet. Let me ask you something very simple. When was the last time you held something warm without naming it? A mug, fresh coffee, maybe a bowl of soup. Usually, the mind moves fast, too hot, nice, I like this, I should be careful. All of that happens almost instantly. But for a brief moment, before the words line up, there's just heat, pressure, weight in the hands. That moment doesn't explain itself, it doesn't need to. Now notice what usually replaces it: a comment, an evaluation, a small story about the experience. Nothing wrong with that, that's how we function. But here's the quiet shift. Understanding the warmth is not the same as feeling it. Thinking about the sensation is not the sensation. The body never confuses the two, only the mind does. And this happens everywhere. While walking, while eating, while listening to someone speak. We say, I'm here. But often, we're standing next to the experience, describing it. Every now and then, the commentary drops. Maybe because you're tired, maybe because something interrupts it. And suddenly, there's just what's happening, no distance, no interpretation. It doesn't last long, it doesn't need to. Once you've noticed that difference, even briefly, something becomes harder to ignore. How much of your day is lived directly, and how much is narrated? Once you start noticing this difference, it shows up in places you didn't expect. Take an emotional moment. Say someone close to you says something sharp. Before the feeling even settles, there's already a sentence in your head. What they meant, what you should say back, what this says about the relationship. The feeling itself is simple, a tightening, a warmth, a drop. But the commentary is busy. It keeps the moment alive long after the words are gone. Or look at a social situation, a meeting, a group chat, nothing overtly hostile. Yet there's a constant scanning. How did that land? Did I say too much? Why did they react that way? Most of what's happening isn't in the room. It's in the interpretation of the room. And then there's the quieter layer. The one you meet when nothing is happening at all. You're alone, no notifications, no conversations, and still, something moves. Plans, regrets, imagined futures, replayed scenes. It feels like thinking about life, but often it's life being talked over. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just persistently. Once you notice this pattern across different moments, it stops being about any single thought or feeling. It becomes a question of atmosphere. What kind of inner climate are you living in, most of the time? And how often is it shaped by what's actually here, versus what's being discussed internally? You don't have to answer that. Seeing it clearly is already enough to change the tone. So what happens when you stop trying to manage any of this? Not improve it, not quiet it down, just not interfere. Notice how unfamiliar that sounds. We're used to doing something, labeling, redirecting, optimizing. But there are moments when a reaction shows up and nothing is done about it. No agreement, no resistance. Like hearing traffic outside. You don't like it. You don't dislike it either. It's just there. The sound comes and goes on its own. Something similar happens inside when attention isn't leaning forward, not pulling away, not stepping in. A thought appears, an emotion follows, and without effort, they change. Not because you moved them, but because you didn't stay glued to them. This isn't withdrawal, you're still present, still aware. Just not standing nose to nose with every inner comment. From here, things don't feel solved, they feel spaced. There's room between what arises and what it turns into. You might start noticing reactions as they form, not after they've already taken over, and that raises a quiet possibility. If nothing needs to be fixed right now, what is it like to simply remain with what's actually happening? Before the commentary begins, at some point, it may become obvious that much of what passes through you is simply passing by. Not a message, not a command, not a truth asking to be defended. Just movement. In a world where everything invites a response, there's something quietly radical about letting a moment remain unclaimed. No agreement, no rejection, no need to turn it into identity. What's yours doesn't need protection. What's real doesn't need commentary. So perhaps the invitation is small. The next time a reaction appears, before you share it, before you explain it, before you even believe it, see if you can stay with the moment just a little longer than usual. Not to understand it, just to let it be seen. And then notice. When nothing is added, what, if anything, is actually missing?